Dice Tower Tonight, episode 107.
Scary board games!
I knew you were doing it, and you still scared me.
I
Welcome.
waited Go.
Welcome to Dice Tower Tonight, a video cast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On tonight's show, we're preparing for Halloween by asking the age-old question, can a board game scare you? I mean, beyond the price for the latest all-in Kickstarter pledge. Plus, Crystal has something new for me and the chat to play. We talk about some recent play sessions, and we answer questions from the audience live. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the Holtzman to my Kevin, it's Crystal Dax.
Ooh, I like that reference a lot. Excellent choice.
That movie has gotten its share of dislike over the few years since it came out, but I really did enjoy it. It had its moments, and I thought they had some great musical choices over the course of that film. Some really fun moments in that movie.
Agreed. I really enjoyed it as well, and I am looking forward to the next one also.
Yes, I'm very excited about Afterlife. That's going to be a fun movie. Yes,
I agree wholeheartedly. We are talking about Ghostbusters, in case anyone did not catch that reference. Hi, Eric. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing splendidly, Crystal. I mean, you may have noticed that things are a little bit different with my appearance this evening. I'm wearing slightly different glasses. I'm getting some new lenses and sort of a tweak to the prescription, and they're basically in the shop. So I'm wearing the less good older glasses. That may be what you noticed if things look a little different.
Yep, and things are different on my end too. I have candles.
Yes,
electronic candles.
Thematic candles. Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Just getting into the spooky Halloween mood. We are going to be talking about some spooky games on the horizon, and trying to answer that question: are there board games that can actually make you scared? And I think we've got some contenders. I think that we're going to be talking about later in the show. If there's anything that you think matches the bill, chat, be sure to let us know. Be thinking about that question, because we'll be getting to the topic real soon. But as we are wont to do, we should be talking about some games we've been playing lately. Crystal, why don't you go first?
I would love to. I actually, for the first time in a few months, got together with 3 friends from my local game group who I used to meet up with weekly. They came over to my house this past weekend, and one of them brought a game that I was super excited about because I've heard lots of good things and I wanted to try it, and that is Clover. This is the new game from Repos, the same people who brought you Just One. And I will say that if you're a fan of Just One, you're going to want to listen to this, because Repos knows their audience, and I think they've got another hit on their hands. In Clover, which is another cooperative party game a la Just One, all of the players are given a player board that looks like a clover. Then there is a deck of cards that have words on all 4 sides of them. I'm going to try and show this without dumping everything off of it. We'll see how successful I am at that. And once you have your player board, you slot in cards randomly. You don't get to choose where they go. And then you write words in dry erase markers onto the board that relate to the words that are next to each side. So in this instance, I went ahead, I did draw cards at random and wrote as if I was playing the game for real. So I had the words, for instance, wine and ghost up here. And so I was like, how do you tie wine and ghost together? I said, maybe a mansion. Like you'd serve wine at a fancy party and ghosts could haunt a mansion. You have to kind of sometimes create weird, for storm and limit, I put Fujita, like the Fujita scale for tornadoes.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go over all of my decision making, but here's where the game gets interesting. So everyone does this in secret on their own player board. And then you take all of the cards off of your player board, leaving just the words you wrote. You draw a 5th card from the deck, which I don't have with me at the moment, but I would add in a 5th card. I would shuffle all 5 cards up, and then all the other players would flip those cards over and try to slot them in the same places I put them. Mm-hmm. And that sounds ridiculously easy. It's not at all. Like, this is one of those games like Belrati where when that extra stuff gets thrown in, sometimes it's just perfect. Like the other day when we played, I think I had the words court and octopus that I had to tie together. And I was like, court and octopus, how do I tie those together? I put Triton. I was like, oh, King Triton, he's the leader of a
Yep.
court, and octopuses live in the ocean. Well, guess what word popped up on the card that got drawn? The word
Fork.
spear showed up.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, spear has to go with Triton. And so everybody puts the cards in, the group agrees. And once everybody agrees, then the player who wrote the words will take off any cards that aren't in the right place or in the right orientation. And the group has one more chance to try and slot everything in correctly. There are scoring mechanisms via whether you get it right on the first try or the second try.
Right.
I'll say similarly to Just One, this is a game that I'm likely to play without worrying about the points because it's just a fun activity. I'm not saying the point scoring is bad, but like I'm going to want to just play this because it's just fun in and of itself.
Right.
Eric, I know you've gotten to play this one recently too. What are your thoughts on So Clover?
I love it as well. In fact, we were talking before the show that I almost brought this to talk about today for show and tell. Also that I think we need to try playing this with chat. We're just trying to figure out a way to make it work, make it as interactive as possible. But I think this would be a lot of fun to try because it is cooperative. You're all trying to work together. And I think just as a collaborative experience, this would be a lot of fun to, and we could like prep several trays so we could have like 3 rounds ready to go. And we wouldn't have to wait for the clues to go. Somebody could just prepare them. I think that's going to work really well. There is an additional pitfall when you try and play this with kids. When you have, because I played it with my boys. We went on a road trip for a ninja competition, and I brought it with us to play in the hotel. And they really liked it. But my 10-year-old started making up words.
Oh, no.
He had, I think, chimney and nurse as the 2 words, and he wrote churse, Churse. And I wasn't sure if it was just something he misspelled. He didn't know how to spell it. Churse, he's like, yeah, that's just a word I made up. So
Okay.
it adds an extra difficulty, a speed bump, as it were, for getting all of the clues correct. But they really had a good time. They wanted to play multiple rounds. I'm never quite sure how something's going to go with them, and they're like, "No, let's do that again. Let's go." Oh, wait, is it bedtime?
That's awesome.
So it was really cool. I love it. This is going to come out at the next family gathering we've got. I think this is another hit, and especially if you like Just One and want something that's, Just One is also very simple to jump into, but this one works as well. This is another one that you want to play multiple rounds of, and just let's deal them out again. Let's try again. Let's do it again. The score doesn't matter. Just see
Absolutely.
how well you can match everything up. I really enjoyed it.
And I will say, I like calling out thoughtful design elements in components of games. And I have to give a shout out, the player boards, the little holes or the things that hold the cards, the little pokey outy things in the middle that hold the cards, have little indents in them for your fingers. So when you're holding your player board with the cards on it, there's a place to put your hand that won't mess up the dry erase marker words, which wasn't required, but is quite nice. So I wanted to give a shout out to the little indentations here.
Yep. Plus, the notches make it easy to remove the cards.
Absolutely.
When you're resetting the board. Yeah, it's very well put together. It comes with 6 of those Clover boards. You can have up to 6 players, which is another plus for this one.
Yep, absolutely. So that is So Clover, designed by Francois Romain and published by Repos.
Very cool. So I am talking about another new hotness game, and one that I'm sure you are interested in. I was at a game night at the friendly local gaming store, and they had just gotten this game in. They had gotten a shipment of maybe 10 copies of the game, and I think 6 of them went out the door that night from people who were there for game night. And
wow.
That is The New Crew. Mission
Yay!
Deep Sea this is from Cosmos. It is the follow-up to the Kennerspiel des Jahres winner, The Crew, which is the cooperative trick-taking game. Quick synopsis if you haven't played the original Crew. There's a deck of how many cards is it? I guess it's 40 cards. Yes, because you've got 4 suits numbered 1 through 9. You also have a trump suit 1 through 4. And in this case, they're submarines. In the original, they're rocket cards. And you are given some sort of task that you have to perform. In the original, most of those tasks are, I must gain this particular card. I have to get the blue 6. And these are distributed amongst the many players. You start out with very simple missions. I only need 1 card. Then I need a card. Then you need a card. And then all 4 of us need cards. And then we need them in a certain order. And then, so they get progressively more complex as you go through this mission book. You are not allowed to talk about the cards that you have in your hand, except that you have these communication tokens. This is also the same in the new version. You've got a little communication token, and in between tricks, you can put a card down on the table from your hand that says, I have this in my hand, for one thing, and you can put the token on it that says either, this is the highest card I have of this suit, this is the lowest card I have of this suit, or this is the only card I have of this suit. That's all you can communicate, and even some of the missions don't allow you to do that much. So based on that small amount of information and what your fellow players are doing, what the goals are, you're trying to achieve all the goals and get through that particular mission. So that is the original Crew. The new one, in addition to having an underwater theme as opposed to a space theme, changes up the way these missions are dealt out. There is still a logbook that sort of gives you the progression. There is a story that just sort of progresses as you're exploring the ocean. But the primary mechanism for doling out these tasks is that you're given a difficulty number now. So you'll have a number, a 3. This is a difficulty of 3. And so you shuffle up this deck of task cards. Say we're playing with 4 players. This is a level 1 difficulty card. So I take that one. Okay, well, we need the 3. That's too much. So we don't take that card. Wow, I just flung that across the table, didn't I? We get the 1. So now we need 1 more. And then we search the deck for a level 1. So now we have 3 tasks that are on the table. 3 supposedly easy tasks, but they're now on the table. And then you flip them up and you go in order taking those tasks. Again, you're not allowed to discuss what you have in your hand. The leader has to begin. There's also a skipping rule that at least one player is allowed to skip if there are fewer tasks than there are players playing the game. So if the leader's like, I can't do any of those, they can pass, but then everybody else might need to take those remaining 3 tasks. So, who knows whether that's a good or a bad decision. But once everybody has a task, then the game continues and you're trying to complete them all. Or if you fail, you can either play with the same cards or you can dole out a new set. If you just say, these were impossible, I can't do these, you can go with a new set and hopefully beat that mission with a different set. These missions vary. Some of them are very similar to the original game. I will win the green 6. That's very simple. I will win the blue 6 and a yellow 7. That's a little different. I will win none of the first 5 tricks. That's an interesting... These seem to be more puzzly. There was always sort of a puzzle to this. I will win no green cards. I will win all of the 3s. I will win a 6 with a 6. Like, some of these get really complex. I will win the green 2 in the final trick of the game. I will win as many tricks as the leader. I will win a trick with a total value of 8, 12, or 16 based on the number of players. So you have to decide when to play that particular value of card. Some of these are really neat and sort of brain bendy in a different way from the original game. I have heard many people say that this basically replaces the original box. It's the same game, but the challenges are a little more varied. it's easier to play repeat games if you're restarting and playing with new players and doing mission one again. Mission one is not the same every time you play it. I guess if you don't own the original crew and you're faced with both boxes, yes, get the new one, because I think it is a more varied game.
I want to provide a counterpoint on that,
Okay.
if I may.
Sure.
So for the record, I've only played Mission Deep Sea on Board Game Arena so far. I have not played the physical version of the game yet, as I do not own it. I will be getting it. I love Mission Deep Sea. I need to make sure that is clear up front. I think the new tasks are really interesting and fun and exciting. But in my mind, there is one thing that the original crew does far better than the new crew. And that is the idea of a campaign. Because in the new crew, like when I think of a campaign, I think of a shared experience that multiple game groups can go through and then commiserate about later. For like Pandemic Legacy Season 1, there's a particular month. Everybody knows what that month is. You're like, oh yeah, that month in Pandemic Legacy Season 1. And similarly with the original crew, when I tweeted about finishing all 50 missions, I was like, oh my gosh, Mission 34 was ridiculously hard for us. And other people were able to be like, oh my gosh, yes, 34 was bananas, so hard. With this new crew, I think the replayability for a single group is better because it's going to be different every time. But if you're looking for a campaign experience, I actually think the original crew is far better for that reason, because the new crew, at least having only played 7 missions thus far, it doesn't feel like a campaign. It feels like the same game increasing in difficulty. And now again, I've only played through 7 missions. That might change, but that was my initial impression. Again, no hate to the game. I love them both, but I do think that there is value in the original crew for people who are looking for that campaign experience.
Yes, it's a little more contained. There are, in some of the later missions, some hurdles that are defined in the book. In the logbook. So it's not always a random draw from the deck. It often is, but there are a few specific tasks that you need to perform in mission 13 or something, and you will. So you do have those moments where you've reached this point and everyone who plays the crew needs to get through this particular task. So that is there, and I know the final mission is predefined. You know, you pull these from the deck, do these tasks. So there's that. There are some timed missions, which is interesting. You have 3 minutes to complete this hand, which is tricky. So I haven't actually completed those missions yet, but I'm interested to see how it's all going to work out. I've also been playing on Board Game Arena, so if that is something that you wanted to try out, go check it out. But I'm delighted that this is now available at the friendly local game stores. My son was excited to see that. So this is another one that's going to get a lot more physical play time with my kids. That's the crew, Mission Deep Sea.
Awesome. Bettina, regarding your question in the chat, remind us about that later at the end of the show for the question segment, and we will talk about that. For now, though, we're going to play something that is not really spooky, but at least fits with the Halloween theme. How does that sound, Eric?
I would love to play a Halloween-themed game. What are we doing?
Okay, so chat, I'm going to level with you here. I'm putting a lot of trust in you this evening, okay? I am going to let you all have access to a Google Jamboard, and you're going to get to draw things, but only 7 of you. So if you are on a desktop computer or laptop, not a mobile device, and you can easily have multiple browser windows open, and you would like to play a drawing game with us, what I need you to do is in the chat, in all caps, type the word monster. And I'm going to pick 7 of you, and then I'm going to post a link to the Jamboard in the chat, and I'm going to need those 7 people to hop into it. Technically, anybody can click through to that link, but I'm going to trust that if you don't get selected, you're not going to click through. And if you do, you're just cheating yourself. So do what you will, but so type monster in all caps in the chat. And okay, so Belg for Mitt. You're gonna be page number 2. Eric, I'm gonna have you on page number 1.
Oh yes,
Okay.
should I type monster too? I can if you want.
No, you're fine. You're page number 1. Okay. Belg
Okay.
for Mitt. You're gonna be page number 2. Kabuki Kid. You're gonna be page number 3. Horde of the Board is gonna be page number 4. Shadowling is gonna be page number 5. Here, I'll just go ahead and post the link. Let me grab the link real quick, and then I'll get back to selecting people. Okay, what was the last one I said? Oh gosh.
Shadowling.
Shadowling was page number, let's see. You're at 1. That was 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so Bettina, you're on page number 6. And then I have 2 more spots available.
Everybody else is afraid.
Oh, why are there new pages now? There's 13 pages all of a sudden.
Is it because new people have joined?
No, that shouldn't have added pages. I have numbers at the top of the pages, so the blank ones that got added, we can just ignore. I don't know how that happened, but
okay.
Yes, Eric is always number 1 in my heart. That is accurate.
Thank
Cora
you
Lou.
so much.
Yep, Jojo, you're on page number 7. And there are numbers at the tops of the pages. So those of you I've given a number to, click over to your page. All right, Daniel, you're page number 8. Perfect.
Okay.
We got our 8 players. What we are playing, everybody, is the brand new on Kickstarter right now, the new version of Monstrosity, which is a collaboration with Shut Up and Sit Down, called Monstrosity Unusual Suspects. And what's going to happen is I am going to have 20 seconds to study a card that has a picture of a monster on it. I will show you one as an example, but it is not the one I'm going to use. So let me just grab one at random here. So something like this is what I'm going to be looking at. I will have 20 seconds to study it, and then I will have 2 minutes to describe it to you all. And during those 2 minutes, you're going to try and draw what I describe. And then once you all get done, once the 2 minutes is up, I will select which drawing I think looks the most like the monster I originally looked at. Then I'm going to show you all the monster card, and everybody in chat is going to get to select which monster they think is the most like the card.
Chat is freaking out. Everyone who has been volunteered for this is like, oh no, what did I just do?
I'm so excited. That's why I didn't explain it first, and I made people volunteer.
Yes, I understand.
Yep. All right. And again, this could all go off the rails. We'll find out. But that's what we're going to do, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a monster card at random from the deck. And then, Eric, can you keep an eye on 20 seconds for me?
Sure. Let me get a device that's going to help me do that.
Okay.
And then I am ready to do that when you are.
Okay. And then I'm going to get a 2-minute timer ready, with BB8 is the noise that will go off. Okay. So that will happen. I'll set that after I look at the card for 20 seconds. So I'm going to start looking at the card. You tell me when I have to stop. Okay. Ready, set,
go.
Here I'm looking now. Okay. Oh.
Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, time.
Okay, I've put the card down, and I'm going to start the 2-minute timer. Drawers, get ready. You've got 2 minutes starting now. Okay, so the monster looks like a giant blob that's kind of standing upright, and it has big eyes, a gigantic mouth that is open with big, lips. And you can see its tongue inside its mouth, and the tongue is in the mouth, but kind of pointed upward. And it has 2 teeth on the top of its mouth and 2 teeth on the bottom on the sides of the tongue. On its side, it has some spots, and it has one hand kind of like sticking out of its side. I think it had like bushy eyebrows. And it's I don't know what colors you all have available in the Jamboard, so I'm not going to worry too much about colors, but it's a grayish colored blob monster, and the spots were like kind of red. The lips were like more pinkish. It's facing to the left side of the card. I don't know if that matters. I should have said that earlier. Don't worry about it if you already did stuff. Okay, I still have time. Oh my gosh, what else am I missing? I don't think there was anything special about the bottom of it. It was just kind of sitting on the floor like a singular blob, like almost a bell shape in total, like kind of, but like just a single blob standing up. Big eyes, big eyebrows, big mouth, open, big lips, one hand sticking out of its side, kind of turned, not portrait, but like catty cornered a little. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's all I can really remember. I've got 13 seconds left, but I'll give you all 10 more seconds to finish drawing, but I have nothing else that I think I can remember. So what I'm going to do is I'm in Skype, Eric. I'm going to get ready to share my screen. Okay. Oh, yep, that's BB-8 telling me time is up.
Did you want to make sure that everything is kosher before
that's a good call. Let me flip through real quick and just make sure everything is generally okay. And yes, we're fine. Everything is good. I knew I could trust chat, but I think that's a good call just in case. Okay, so let me find where screen sharing is in Skype. There it is. Share screen, and we're gonna go over to this. I'm going to share that. And Eric, you should have my screen now in Skype.
Looks like I do.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to go through these drawings and I'll talk them out a little bit with the chat. Because I have to pick which one I think is best before I look at the card again. But then you all will get to see the card and you'll pick which one you think is the best. Eric, I have to say that this is impressive.
Thank you.
Looks great. I love the squiggly eyebrows and the tongue pointing up. That's awesome. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. Ooh,
colors.
Yeah, I like the colors. Very nice. We got the eyebrows. You got the hand. It's so funny. I should have been more specific about where the hand was, but that's clearly I'm not the best describer. So we'll see. Number 3. Ooh, we got the spots on this one. Nice. Good job, number 3. This is Kabuki Kid. Thank you for the initials down there. I'm not going to remember who was who anymore, but I'm sure you all will speak up and remind me. This one is great. I love how they're all very similar. I must have either done a very good job or a very bad job of describing the monster. We got spots. I like how this monster looks concerned. Like he's worried about something, you know? Oh gosh. This monster is having a rough day, you know, like but I will say the hand is technically more on the side that it should be, which I didn't describe, but you just randomly happened to choose the side that was better. Ooh, we got spots that you colored in red. Very nice. Ooh, the eyebrows look real good. Those are on fleek, as the kids would say. Number 7. Oh my gosh, this one's so cute. I don't know why, but I really like this one. The use of color just makes me super happy. So good job, number 7. And then number 8. Oh my gosh, this actually reminds me of like a claymation game that I played in the 90s called The Neverhood. I don't know why, but this like. Right.
I was going to say Real Monsters on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of an Real Monsters vibe, doesn't it? Okay, so based on what I saw originally, I think I might go with number 4. I'm going to go through real quick and make sure. Okay, so I'm going to pick number 4 as the best one, but it's not up to me. I mean, it is. If we were playing by the real scoring, that would matter, but we're just playing for fun here. So what I'm going to do is, where did I put the straw poll? Over here. There it is. I'm going to grab the link to the straw poll, put it in the chat, and I'm going to show you all the cards. So don't vote yet. Don't vote, everybody, but I'm putting the link in the chat right now. And here is the card. Eric, can you show my video again?
I can. There we go. Oh
Okay,
my!
this is the drawing
We
that
had nothing
everybody
about the
was.
nose at all.
I completely forgot that he had a nose. I only had 20 seconds to study this guy. And yeah, you'd think the nose would have. I was focused on the mouth and the tongue, and I forgot the bags under his eyes. I remembered he had eyebrows.
Yep.
So based on this, now chat, we're gonna go flip back through all of the monsters, and you all are gonna vote on which one you think did the best. So we've got number 1, we've got number 2, we've got number 3, number 4, number 5,
The terror
number.
on 5.
I know, right? Yeah, number 5 is it's just scared. Number 6, number 6 is much happier than number 5. Number 7, and number 8, which is I'm digging the vibe of number 8.
Yeah.
That one's pretty good. So chat, I'll drop the link one more time. I would say don't vote for yourself. Technically, in the rules of the game, it says you're not allowed to vote for yourself, but obviously I can't stop you. So when you play the game for real, all the players hold up a number. So if you wanted to vote for number 5, you'd hold up 5 fingers. And you cannot vote for yourself in the real game. But
Right.
All right, let's look at how the results are going so far. We've got 7 people have voted, so I bet you there's more votes coming in still. I should refresh, though. Auto refresh. There we go.
I mean, I would go for the drawing that looked more tortured, because the card itself had a certain amount of unhappiness to it.
Right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said what my vote was. I feel like I've skewed the results by saying my selection. So we'll give first and second place kudos once people are done voting.
Yep.
Either that or I just picked really well and chat agrees with me.
Sure.
Either one of those things is possible. All right, we still have some votes coming in.
How many cards are in the version of the game, Crystal?
So in this version of the game, there are, assuming that this is about a 52 card deck, there were 2 of those in the box. So I'm guessing there are around 100 monsters in the box natively. It also came with a promo pack of more difficult monsters that have like lots more detail. There's only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 of those. And then obviously, you're not going to be playing this digitally. The game does come with cool marker boards and markers for all of the players. And it also comes with some, similar to like trivia trolls, it comes with special rules that you can use to make the game more difficult. My favorite one, it says, one artist should go to the other side of the room with the monster card. Hold it in front of them so the witness can see the monster, and begin walking quickly toward the witness. The witness will have until the artist reaches them and boops them on the nose with the monster card to memorize the monster. Like, it actually says boops them on. So you have to, like, zoom in and boop somebody with a monster. And that's funny to me. Like, if I have somebody coming at my nose, I don't know how much I could focus on making sure I have the monster correct. But all right, well, the votes are in, and everybody agrees that number 4 was the best one. So congrats to whoever number 4 was, and then kudos also to number 6 and number 8. You also got a lot of votes. So there you go. I won't make us play a second round of that right now, but I may bring this one back in the future. I just wanted to try it out because, Monstrosity is a perfect spooky game for Halloween week, and it's on Kickstarter right now. So if you think this would be a fun drawing game for your collection, feel free to go look it up on Kickstarter. It's a collaboration between Deepwater Games and Shut Up and Sit Down, and I think it's pretty cool. So, yep, that's Monstrosity, everybody.
Coralu suggests that we actually do combine it with trivia trolls. So when you're describing the monster, you have to use funny voices or no vowels.
Oh, gosh. Oh my goodness, that would be interesting.
It would be difficult.
Very difficult. Oh my gosh, chat, you all did great though. I loved your drawings very much. And if anybody else happened to play along and drew on their own, I should have told you in advance. Feel free to draw, even if you don't have a digital marker board. If anybody happened to draw it elsewhere, feel free to send us the picture. I'd love to see
Yes.
it.
All right, we should get to our discussion. We are asking the age-old question: is it possible for a board game to make you scared? We've talked about, I know a year or two ago here on the show, we talked about Halloween-themed games, or good games to play on Halloween, spooky games. But we're specifically looking for something that can bring out that emotion of actual fear.
And I would, yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
So I've sort of built some categories, some possibilities that we could focus on. I was wondering how you were approaching this subject, because I know you had a couple things when we first discussed this that immediately came to mind. Yes, this is a great selection for this, but I don't know if you had found more or filtered more into categories and how you approached it.
I do have a couple of categories of games that I think sometimes fit the bill, but the main thing that I considered when I was kind of like making notes about this topic are that I think in my own head, I often confuse tension with scariness, if that makes sense. Like as far as board games are concerned, I think there are moments that are very tense that feel as scary as I would want a board game to be, but if you really looked at them in the grand scheme of life, are not actually all that scary. But I think, there are games where stakes are involved to some degree, and that could be real-time games, for instance, where a timer is going to run out. That's a category of game. Or I put escape room games as a category as well, because I do think that there's often timers involved there, or there are even imaginary stakes at play. You're trapped in a place and you need to get out. And so if you can immerse yourself in a theme, that there are moments of tension and scariness that can come out of that.
Yes. I think, I sort of did equate the tension, because when you are, equating this to a scary movie, you're watching a character move through a darkened hallway, something is going to jump out at you. And so your body gets in that tense mode, and you're just waiting for that thing to jump out, and that it's going to come. And there are games that play with that. In the chat, a few people mentioned Perfection, where you're trying to get things into position, but you know that when that timer runs out, it's going to make a loud noise, and everything is going to explode out of this unit. Similar games that I came up with are any, like stacking dexterity game, where you are trying to get a piece up to the top, and everybody is don't move, don't move, please don't move. Crocodile Dentist. That kids game where you're pushing little things, but when you fail, when it goes off, you hit the random wrong tooth, the crocodile actually snaps down on your fingers, which is, minor stakes, but it's startling. So it actually does, and when you're making the move, it's like, oh, I don't nobody move. I have to make this, I have to touch this. So there is that sort of tension emotion, which I do think is closely related, and is worthy of discussion here.
Absolutely. A bunch of people in the chat are talking about time stories, and I actually have time stories down on my list. I would say most of the time stories scenarios are not scary, but there are a couple that play on themes that are scary in nature. And I'm not going to spoil any of Time Stories. I know it is very old at this point, but I still don't want to ruin the experience for anyone who decides to pick it up later. But there is one scenario in Time Stories which I have referenced multiple times as being one of the most thematic moments of any board game I've ever played. I'm not going to even say which one. If somebody wants to message me later and ask, I'm happy to share, but I don't want to spoil even which one I'm talking about. But in my mind, it was a very scary and thematic moment, fit with the theme, and made what we were doing in game feel far more real than I would have expected.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna want to know which one that is and see if
Yeah.
it's one I've done that, because I have several time story scenarios that I have not played. They're just sort of stacked up. I was doing it with a group, and we never quite got back together to play that game, and so it's one of those things that I kept buying them because I wanted them as they came out, but we haven't played through probably half of the ones I have. So I'd love to know if it's one that I need to focus on and get to the table.
Well, what's interesting is it is one that most people do not rank near the tops of their lists, but it is my favorite. Well, one of my favorites because of the reasons I already mentioned. So,
You do touch on another one of my categories, and that is disturbing subject matter.
mm,
You've mentioned a couple of the escape games. In fact, I pulled. My game room is in utter chaos right now. In fact, all of the games are clustered into a corner so that we can paint the walls. I had to reach over things to get the couple of examples I had. But the Escape the Room, the most recent one, the Cursed Dollhouse, which is pretty creepy. And that's some darker imagery. You can just sort of see the doll creepily staring at you. The Escape Tales,
oh yeah,
the Escape Tales series has some pretty intense imagery, some themes, some much darker themes. That just, it's a much more adult game. I've done some escape rooms that are more adult than I really wanted them to be. Some much more very disturbing themes that I did not recommend the games because of that. Some folks mentioned on Twitter Stuffed Fables, which I have over here. I could only get the expansion because the real one is, shuffled into a corner somewhere. My kids were okay with Stuffed Fables and the themes of, got these stuffies that are going on adventures, and they are at times in peril. Monsters or creatures will show up and they're sort of in danger. And for younger kids, which the game is certainly geared toward, that could be much more intense. I and my kids sort of approached it like, that now this is the goal we must work together to overcome. It's about the arc and not necessarily the what's going to happen to my favorite stuffies. It is very important to get past that danger and complete the mission. And from that perspective, I think it works well. But I have heard, and some people mentioned on Twitter, that there were kids who were having nightmares due to the events of the game, and so that could certainly, when a game is scary or thematically more disturbing, especially for younger players, that can produce fear on a longer term.
absolutely. And I think obviously that is more likely to happen for kids rather than adults, but I think where board games or tabletop games in general can be more scary kind of depends on the players and their willingness to suspend reality. Because at the end of the day, you know that you're playing a game,
Yeah.
regardless of, what's in the game itself. And so if you are completely cutting yourself off emotionally from the content of the game, it's not going to be scary. Any board game can be scary or not scary, I think. Well, not any board game. Like, Kalos is not scary. But uh, so to that end, people in the chat have already mentioned a game that I talked about on a recent episode of Dice Tower Tonight. It is a role-playing game called Alice is Missing. I immersed myself in the theme of this game when I was playing it and had real emotions and fear and anxiety about what was going to happen to Alice in the game that I played. That might not be the case for everybody, but I think role-playing games especially allow you to immerse yourself in a theme, sometimes a little bit more intensely than some board games do. But there are also board games that can cause moments of pure terror. And so to that end, I had to obviously grab Atmosphere,
Yep.
which also known as Nightmare, but I didn't just grab the newest version of Atmosphere, which is the app controlled version. I also grabbed the DVD version and
VHS version too?
the VHS version.
Wow.
So I have all three versions of Atmosphere, and I will say I am not a person who tends to enjoy horror movies, mostly because of two reasons. Gore, I'm not good with, and jump scares, I'm generally not good with. I don't like that, something's about to jump out at you feeling. Atmosphere is the only board game that I know of that has produced an actual jump scare for multiple players at the same time. And I'm not going to give details as to how that happens because I hope you all will find this game and play it because it's a gosh darn delight. It's so much fun, especially if the players get into it. It is not a high quality strategic experience, but gosh, is it a fun time.
I have not played Atmosphere, so I can't speak to the jump scare in there. But yeah, having a multimedia aspect to it that can, as a real time event, jump out at you and surprise you in some way, certainly gives it an advantage in doing this. It sort of blends the border between a game and a scary movie, which is what we keep equating it to here. The
Yeah.
closest I've come to actual real-time terror is in a game called Nyctophobia,
Mm.
which is a game played with the sense of touch. Most of the players are blindfolded during the course of the game, and you are moving your pieces around this board by touch. There are walls that you run into, and you're sort of moving through a forest and running into barriers and trying to explore this area. And one player who is running the game is guiding you around. Like when it's your turn, they take your hand. Here is your piece. And so you don't know where you are on the board at the beginning, and you're trying to move up, down, left, right. You are also trying to avoid the evil player, sometimes it's a vampire, sometimes it's a axe murderer in the forest, and so there is that fear when somebody puts blinders on you. If you are used to having your sense of sight and suddenly you don't have it, it is far more terrifying than I thought it would be to suddenly have to work in an area that you are not familiar with. The designer built it so that it could be played with her, I believe, uncle, who is vision impaired. And so I'm sure he does far better at the game than someone who is used to having that sense and is suddenly not able to use it in the course of the game. It's a very interesting game, and it produces a significant amount of tension as you move 3 steps this way and you don't know what you're going to run into. It's very
Absolutely. Kabuki Kid mentions in the chat that timed games like Escape or Fuse give them anxiety, and I agree. I put Escape the Curse of the Temple on my list because especially like the whole game isn't necessarily scary, but that one moment, especially if you're using the atmospheric CD where the like gong goes off or whatever, and everyone has to rush back to the entrance within a certain amount of time or you lose a die, that feels scary because there are stakes involved, as I mentioned earlier. So that the other example of stakes that have made me feel fear in a board game come from Dead of Winter. Early in my time as a content creator, I mentioned, I think in a podcast literally years ago, that I thought one of the most thematic components in a game ever was that red die in Dead of Winter that you have to roll. It's called the exposure die. And in Dead of Winter, there are times when you have to roll it. It's a D10 or a D12. I don't remember.
It's a D12.
D12. And one single side of that D12 has a mark on it that if you roll it, the character that you're playing at that moment dies instantly. And admittedly, that can suck in the context of the game, but boy oh boy does it up the stakes and the emotions, and it feels thematically accurate. You are in the middle of a zombie apocalypse trying to survive, and when you go out wandering, you could just die. And so it really does a good job of making you feel like you're in the environment that the game exists in.
Yes, I wrote down Dead of Winter in sort of the category of stakes for the characters.
Hmm.
Much like when you're watching a horror movie, you are invested in who you're watching. And so in the game, you're invested in who you're playing. And certainly in Dead of Winter, if you're invested in your 2 or 3 characters that you've got in front of you and one of them dies, that's extremely shocking. Also, Dead of Winter has the Crossroads cards where
Mm.
one player at the beginning of a turn draws one and they all have a trigger. And so it says when a player does this, you interrupt the game and you have to deal with this thing. So every action has the possibility of somebody stopping everything, hold up, and then this event happens. So that adds a certain amount of jump scare tension to the whole thing as well, because you never know, you don't know what it says on the card when a player does this triggers this. So you have no idea. You're just going about your business, even if you're not rolling that stupid death die. You just, I grab some food. Oh, when a player takes food, this happens. And you suddenly are in this unskippable cutscene that you have to make a decision. So that also has stakes. I wrote down as well in the same category the Pathfinder Adventure card game,
Mm.
where if you are playing strictly by the rules, players can die. And so if you run out of cards in your deck, you're done. And you are supposed to, no matter how long you've been playing with that character, you're supposed to shuffle those cards back into the decks and start over. Which, with my children, I do not do. But I totally understand the possibility of, with those stakes, it makes it far more important that you support each other in your team and you have the possibility that if you go down the wrong corridor or just roll terribly, that you are in big trouble. And sometimes you just, if you know death is around the corner, maybe you just don't take any more actions with that character and just hope to run out the clock. Which is certainly an aspect of the game that is important to getting the full experience there.
Absolutely. Um, Joe in the chat says last Friday with its hidden movement can be scary. And that is another category of games that fits well. I think a lot of games with a hidden movement mechanism, like what's the Jack the Ripper one? Why can't I remember the name of it?
Letters from Whitechapel.
Letters from Whitechapel or Spectre Ops or Fury of Dracula. When you don't know where the bad guy is, that just innately creates more tension than when you can just see the bad guy outright. And so those games can be very spooky. I do find it interesting, though, that there are a decent number of games with seemingly scary themes that are not at all scary to play.
Sure.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I recently got to play The Bloody Inn for the first time, which is basically the movie Psycho or the backstory of Psycho kind of in board game form. Like you're running a hotel and potentially murdering your own guests and trying to make sure the police don't find out about it.
Right.
And that game is not at all scary. In fact, while we were playing, we had conversations like, well, I mean, I could kill the policeman, but I don't have anywhere to hide his body right now, so I think I'll just let him live. And it did not feel spooky at all. But technically the theme is very dark. So
yes.
Subject matter and theme definitely can play into spookiness, but I think in and of themselves, they don't create scary moments in games by themselves always. Betrayal at House on the Hill is another one that often the scenarios don't end up being scary. They're a little more silly, a la like a Scooby-Doo adventure, for instance.
Right, which is why there's a Betrayal Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
So that's pretty much my list. Were there any other games that you specifically wanted to talk about?
I think we covered everything that I had on my list.
Sweet. I mean, I think the jump scare, the actual media-enhanced jump scare, is probably the purest way. That unequivocally, you could say that is a board game that can scare you, that can make you feel fear. I think Nyctophobia falls close into that category, and then it just sort of falls onto, what would you consider fear when we're talking about the stakes for the characters in the game, or, creating tension, which is closely related, even if you're if you can split hairs a little bit as to whether you are actually afraid of the stakes in the game, but it can produce the same reaction when you're dealing with the tension, and then just the disturbing subject matter that's more of a long tail of fear that can produce more psychological effects down the road, as opposed to an immediate reaction when you're actually in the game.
Absolutely. People are talking about a couple of social deduction games, and I would say that that's another good category that we haven't touched on yet. Cami says, I once played a werewolf game that had a very scary voice telling people to close their eyes.
Everyone, close your eyes. Werewolves, wake up and look for other werewolves.
Perfect. And Liz mentioned Blood on the Clock Tower. That's another social deduction game. I would say the fear of having a bad guy get you in those games, or the fear of being found out as a bad guy, can definitely be a real thing, especially if the theme of the game, like, these games are kind of spooky themed with creatures and monsters to begin with. Those can be scary, especially depending on how the group chooses to approach the game.
Indeed. Well, we have a few more minutes before we want to wrap up the show. I know we had one question fly by early on in the show that we wanted to address.
Yes, from Bettina, but I don't remember what it was, so I'm glad I'm scrolling back up to see if I can find it.
It was about Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Bettina was saying they were going to start playing the game. I don't remember if they said how many players were involved. They were asking for tips on approaching the game. I was going to say, if you only have 2 players playing, I would almost suggest playing 2 characters each, so that you have more. Part of the fun of Legacy is seeing the characters evolve, adding new abilities to them, and just being able to have things happen to them over the course of the game. And if you're only playing with 2 characters, I think you miss out a little bit on that. And so having 2 each might be more fun, because you can spread out a little more and see them evolve in different directions, get more abilities, that sort of thing. And you might enjoy it more that way.
Okay, so Bettina says, any tips for the game with 4 players? Yeah, with 4 players, I think you're just in for a good time, basically. Pandemic Legacy Season 1, I played with 4 players. And really enjoyed the experience. I will say, make sure everybody is paying attention when rule changes occur. And at the beginning of new games, especially if you're playing sessions over multiple weeks or months, refresh yourself on those newer rules. My group did have moments where we kind of forgot little nuances in rules that had been added. Mm-hmm. It doesn't become too overwhelming, but they add new rules fairly consistently, and eventually you're kind of like, wait, how does that mechanism work again? So,
well, it's good if you can do it on a regular basis, so that too much time hasn't passed in between sessions. I know that can get difficult. Life gets in the way, and it's tricky. You might need to read the rule book, which is, I think, where you were headed there, Crystal.
Yep.
With the way that the stickers get placed in at the time, you pull out this sticker and go, oh yeah, great, yeah, let's just put this in the rule book. But that's extremely useful if it's been a while and you need to remind yourself, oh, what got changed in the last session? Oh, this is now important. That is good.
Reading all of the text on the cards is very important. And this is not a spoiler, but when Pandemic Legacy Season 1 came out, a ton of people screwed up Game 1 because they didn't read all of the text on the first stop card that shows up. Because when you're dealing out cards from the Legacy deck, again, this is not a spoiler, but when you hit certain points in the Legacy deck, there will be a big stop sign, and it'll say stop drawing cards. But you need to keep reading the text on that stop card, because it will often let you know when you need to draw the next card. And for the first game, it is very important that you know when to keep drawing from the Legacy deck. And that is a thing that a lot of people messed up.
Gotcha. Yes. So any other questions that we've seen come through? I don't know if any...
yeah, I don't know if anybody else has any questions for us.
No. I wanted to know what you thought of the season finale of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh my gosh, Eric, how could they leave us on such a
There's a
cliffhanger?
cliffhanger at the end of the season this year. I actually just got this morning, I got a survey from Paramount Plus about Lower
Oh,
Decks. They're like, we noticed that you watched Lower Decks. Would you like to answer these questions? And of course, they say it's going to take like 10 minutes. I said, I've got maybe 10, 20 minutes before work. I'll answer these questions. It took forever.
oh
Because
no.
they had to know all these things, but it was like, how did you enjoy the season? How many other Star Trek shows have you watched? I'm like, I need to answer this so that they make a season 3. So yes, I will answer these questions. I really enjoyed the season finale. I think the whole season was very solid. I know Lower Decks is a sillier take on Star Trek, but I think they sort of found a good balance this year. The first season maybe was a little on the silly side, but season 2, I think they found that balance a little more, and they really locked into the joy of the franchise. There were a couple of moments that characters are like, this is why I like being in Starfleet. And this is what we should be embracing. And it actually has real emotion and stakes for the characters, even though this is a sillier take on the whole Star Trek world.
Absolutely. And when the show was first announced, a whole bunch of people kind of talked about it as if it was going to be the Rick and Morty of the Star Trek world. And it's animated, and there is some slightly more adult content in it compared to other Star Trek shows, but it is not much like Rick and Morty in my mind. It is still very much a Star Trek show with some of the best character development in any Star Trek show, especially for early seasons. Like season 1 had great character development that I did not anticipate, and season 2 really built on the foundations that season 1 created in an amazing way.
Yeah, yeah. Question about Halloween plans. Are we going trick or treating, or are we giving out candy this year? We are. This is going to be our first Halloween in the new house. We just missed it last year. So that our house or our street is a cul-de-sac. There are a lot of families on the street. I'm expecting a good number of our neighbors to be coming by, which we really didn't have in our neighborhood that we used to live in. So I'm expecting more, I guess, locals coming by our house this year. And this is, I believe, the first year that my youngest has asked he wants to go with friends trick-or-treating and not with mom and dad. So I think I'm home handing out candy, and the 13-year-old has said he wants to hand out candy because he doesn't want to go trick-or-treating. So it's going to
I
be
mean,
a weird dynamic.
I think that's about how old was I when I stopped trick or treating? I feel like I was younger. I feel like it was around 6th or 7th grade for me when I stopped trick or treating. I specifically remember my friend Amanda and I we put on khaki pants and a polo shirt and stole 2 of my dad's golf clubs and went trick or treating as professional golfers.
Nice.
Because we didn't have costumes. And so we were like, we want candy. And for the record, I have to say, I think kids should get candy no matter what, basically.
Sure.
Like, don't be a killjoy. But I liked what my best friend's mom did when she gave out candy. She would give candy to any kid, costume or not, but she made them tell her what their costume was. So even if they didn't have a costume on, they could get candy, but they had to say what they were dressed as. And I thought that was a really cute way to, like, you know, you still get candy, but you got to say something clever or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. As far as my plans for Halloween, this Saturday, which is the 30th, I'm part of the Tabletop Live Network monthly marathon that happens at the end of every month. We're doing a spooky Halloween marathon. It is 24 hours straight of board game streaming on Twitch. And I have a 2-hour block from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific on Saturday. I will be playing Mansions of Madness solo, and I will be dressed as my investigator. So nice. I have already chosen what investigator I'm using in game, and I'm going to be dressed as that investigator, and I'm really excited about it.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Favorite candy? If you could get anything from your trick-or-treat house, that you went to, what would be the prime? I mean, obviously a full-size candy bar of something, but
Right.
what would be the prime haul for you to
Okay, well, I
get?
have to preface this with I'm allergic to all types of nuts, both peanuts and tree nuts, and most of the most popular Halloween candies have peanut butter in them. So that's
Yeah.
not an option for me. So my favorites, if I want something chocolatey, it's a Twix bar or a Milky Way. If I want something fruity, it's Sour Patch Kids.
Okay. Okay.
What about you, Eric?
Well, I have to also throw out the caveat that since I'm diabetic, I can't really indulge in too many of the candies these days. My favorite candy bar, though, was the Take Five, which had
Ah,
peanuts, or I think peanut butter, pretzels, caramel, cookie, and chocolate. I think that's the five things. It was just a really dense, lots of textures and flavors and salty and sweet. It was just fantastic piece of candy making right there. And Reese's Pieces I really miss. And I would love to find a sugar-free version of Reese's Pieces out there. I did find a sugar-free peanut M&Ms.
oh, nice.
So that's the closest I've found. There's a big warning: don't eat too many at once. But
Yep, any sugar-free candy you
yep,
got to be careful with.
it actually gives me like the specific amount, like a quarter cup I'm allowed to have. They're like, that's a tasty treat. Don't go beyond that. But it's those are very tasty. Russell Stover makes them. They're hard to
Yes.
find, but Russell Stover makes the best sugar-free candies that I've had.
Agreed. I when I've done diets that I tried to restrict my sugar, I've done Russell Stover's sugar-free stuff before, and it's been
Yep.
very good. But with real sugar stuff, Mrs. Coaster in the chat says sea salt caramel Milky Way. I have had that candy bar. It is so good. I can't buy them because I will devour them. They are just as good as anybody would imagine they are.
Yes, yes. Lots of folks talking about Take Five and other candies that they love, but that's probably where we should end it for the night.
That sounds like a good place. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I have to say, we already have 31 thumbs ups on the video. So that's so wonderful. I love that I don't even have to ask you. I'll just click that little thumbs up button. That is so appreciated. And there are no thumbs downs, and I'm going to ruin it by saying that, but that just makes me happy too, even though technically they don't matter.
Well, that's just how much people enjoyed your game, playing
I mean,
Monstrosity.
I liked Monstrosity, and I would love to bring it back for another game. You all didn't ruin it, so
Yes.
I was worried. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm putting a link to a Jamboard on a live YouTube stream, but you all did amazing as expected, and that was wonderful. I hope you all have a really wonderful Halloween weekend. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. Stay warm if you're in a place where it gets cold. I'm dying right now because it's in the 70s and I'm wearing a fleece onesie.
Yes.
But we will be back not in 2 weeks as you would expect,
Yes.
but in 3 weeks, because 2 weeks from tonight, it will be in the middle of the Dice Tower Retreat, which Eric is attending.
I get to go play some games with some people. I'm very, very excited to do so. But we discussed the possibility of like, hey, I'm live from the retreat, but we aren't real sure about what the Wi-Fi situation is going to be, where this is all happening. So we'd be playing with fire. So we're going to wait 1 week and probably double up at some point and get back on schedule. But we'll see you in 3 weeks for our next episode.
Absolutely. So that will be on November 17th. How is our next episode in the middle of November, Eric?
How? I don't know.
Yep. That's just so we will see you in 3 weeks on November 17th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you all can join us for that. But until then, I'm Crystal Dax.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching Dice Tower Tonight.
The dog had to get in there too.
I know, right? He's
Thank you for watching. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. Crystal and I will see you in 3 weeks for another installment. Our show is supported by viewers like you. Thanks. Dice Tower Tonight is produced by Crystal and me with assistance from Tom Vassell, Mike Delisio, Roy Cannaday, Chris Yee, and Rob Searing. Our dark revelations about Monty Python musicals brought to you by Shadows over Spamalot. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by GameNerds.com. Give us your feedback on the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek on Facebook or Twitter, or by emailing us at crystal@dicetower.com or eric@dicetower.com. You can hear more from Crystal on the Board Game Blitz podcast, and I can be found giving Tom a hard time on the Dice Tower. Find those shows and more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all of us at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. Good night,
Happy
everybody.
Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.